Well, hi there. Hello. Welcome back to the Pitch Grid. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. We are a podcast that covers the NFL and all its news, the topics surrounding the current events in the league, as well as we recap games and analyze players. Also, we cover the EFL Championship and the games and other various topics that pique interest around the league. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's start on the grid side, as we will start with the topic of TJ Watt. People have taken that he isn't happy with Steelers currently. They think that he's going to maybe think about leaving. He recently has been looking for a contract extension, and so far he hasn't gotten it. There is some reporting that that could be true, that he will want an extension and he wants to be paid like some of the big time pass rushers like Chris Jones, Max Crosby, etc. I mean, and to be fair, he deserves it. He was the sack leader 2 years ago, and he's still one of the premier pass rushers in the league. It is very interesting to think about, like, the Steelers had a very interesting year last year. They really did hit the ground exactly running. TJ Watt didn't have his best season ever, for his standards at least, but at the same time, you also get kind of the frustration, and that's the reporting going around. And there is talk that that extension is coming. However, you don't know when, and this is something you always have to deal with when these kinds of players are near the end of their contract. It's just a very interesting situation, considering also the Steelers are still thinking about Aaron Rodgers and whether he's going to be coming in and being their starting quarterback, because otherwise right now the other option is Mason Rudolph, because let Russ go to the Giants. Kenny Pickett's with the Browns now at this point, so who knows what the quarterback situation is going to be at all in Pittsburgh. Are they going to have money to pay TJ Watt? They better hope they do, because he's their best player on defense. Well, one of their best players on defense. They have Cam Hayward and a couple others. But still, you want to keep the core of this defense intact, and TJ Watt is that core. You want to keep those kinds of pieces around as a franchise. You don't want to do what Miami is doing currently, and that's letting all these big name players either stay, get big extensions, and trading them eventually, and letting all the homegrown drafted players walk. And that's exactly what the Dolphins are doing. But today the news broke that Jalen Ramsey has requested a trade. Dolphins have said they will look and help him find a trade partner. This comes right off the extension with Jalen Ramsey, I believe, earlier during the regular season. And this is also not the only player that the Dolphins have had to deal with. Tyreek Hill also, with all his issues off the field. And he didn't have the best season on the field last year either, but he got an extension as well. This is so interesting because I saw a tweet by Eric Myrov. If you look at the short that was posted today earlier, he points out the Dolphins have led players like Javon Holland, who went to the Giants during free agency, Christian Wilkins, who went to the Raiders last offseason, sparking Chris Jones to re-sign with the Chiefs and get a big contract as a result. This is just a messy situation for Miami, because they have let all these good drafted players that they did have that were smart picks, underrated picks, just walk. Meanwhile, they're having these players that they've traded in and tried to bring in during free agency, like Hill, like Ramsey. They've given them these huge contracts that are now almost impossible. And then, of course, you did extend Tua, to be fair to the Dolphins. So it's not like they have entirely just ditched the drafted players entirely, but it does feel like that is a pattern the Dolphins and Chris Greer have gone. And Chris Greer has today commented that they have fielded trade requests for Tyreek Hill, but that they're not going to accept them. It looks like he's staying in Miami for the foreseeable future. Of course, this is after Tyreek Hill said he went out of Miami earlier, right after the season ended. So it's a mess in Miami. I think if they do not do anything in the regular season this year, I think their playoff door is shut. I don't see them making a comeback. In terms of making the playoffs, making a statement, that was 2 years ago when they lost in the wild card round. That year, that was their year. The first couple of years with Mike McDaniel were the years that they were really looking at trying to break through the glass ceiling of not getting to the Super Bowl since Dan Marino. They need to figure out something and how to strike the balance. It's such a difficult balance for teams to find between how many drafted players you have and how many vets you want to bring in and how many you want to have huge contracts and such. It's a very delicate hierarchy balance. This this is going to be a very interesting season in Miami. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that if Mike McDaniel doesn't succeed this year and get to the playoffs, win them a couple of games? Because during Mike McDaniel's tenure, if you think about it, they haven't won a playoff game. They've lost to Buffalo. They lost to Kansas City. They missed the playoffs. I think they lost to Buffalo again. I'm pretty sure. So it's very interesting to think about now because Mike McDaniel has been touted as a great genius of offense, and yes, they had that high flying offense when Tyreek first came to the team in 2022. They kind of started to falter, and it makes you wonder, have teams figured out the Dolphins' offense? They had that solid defense for a bit. That also kind of had its moments where it fell apart. So this is a very interesting time in Miami that could see them easily miss their window that they slammed open with the trade for Tyreek Hill. Some draft news. The Giants have been working on a couple of quarterbacks, private workouts for Shadur Sanders and Milroe. Milroe, he is the quarterback prospect from Alabama. He's a more mobile type of quarterback who likes to run. He's a more physical specimen of a quarterback. He's tall, he's lanky, he can run with the best of them. He's not a polished passer yet, and I think that's the problem. But right now the trend is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. So if they're wanting to go on that trend, Jalen Milroe could be the quarterback. And then also you have, of course, Sanders, like we talked about on the last podcast, where, again, I just don't think he's that polished a passer. Cam Ward, I think, is a better option just because he has shown consistency in his throwing ability, his running ability. He just has all sorts of tools to be creative and has shown that consistently, not only his time at Miami, but Washington State, where he was, I think, very underrated and it was such a huge pickup for Miami, and they just couldn't do that with you could probably say subpar talent Washington State has, because they're a school that always has like had the Mike Leach mentality of fighting on and such. And Cam Ward kind of epitomized it. And look where he got. He got to Miami. Now he's a top 3 quarterback prospect heading into the draft. I mean, good for him. I think he's still very much tied to the top pick where the Titans are. I think they are very much eyeing him up. If not, the Browns might be. But who knows where the Browns are going to go. I think the Browns might go Travis Hunter, though. So that would be very interesting. Also, we had a retirement coming up this week as Patrick Peterson, long time great corner in this league. He was with the Steelers last offseason, and he decided to formally retire. And he's retiring with the Cardinals. Respect, honestly. Great career. Legend of the modern game in terms of defense and the definition of a shutdown corner for so many years. He kind of just tailed off to the last couple of years of his career. And I think he finally saw this offseason that no one really wants him anymore. And it's sad because he's been such an athletic freak in his entire career. He's made some insane plays as a corner. You could always know that that side of the field is locked down. And the Cardinals, I mean, watch the 25th. I always recommend this. Watch the All or Nothing series on Amazon Prime. The 2015 Cardinals team. Such a great leader, such an awesome guy. I loved watching that season of the show, and you just got to see Pat Pete be himself. He looks like such a cool dude, and he has so much respect around the league as a person, as a player. He was a captain for a reason for so many years, I think. So well deserved. I'm glad he's going back to Arizona, where he was a mainstay for so long. Kudos to him and a great career, and hopefully he has a great future as well. And whatever future endeavors he has, we always, we talk about the retirements and then we kind of just move on past those players. I do think there's merit in talking about the future of players after they retire, because way too often you hear stories like Rodney Harrison talking about in his Football Life documentary how they don't know what to do after retirement because football has been their life, their goal, their dream, their ambition for so long. And then all of a sudden they retire, football's gone. So unless you want to get into coaching, which not all players have that aptitude, there's a very certain mindset you have to have in order to coach. And unless you want to coach, you want to be a scout, something like that, you're done with football. And so I hope Pat Pete, whatever he does, coaching, whatever, he finds a life's work that he can be proud of, that he can help his kids be proud of. And now he's provided for his family through football. Now he's set himself up to hopefully be a success off the field now that he's hanging up the cleats. So just a thought now that we've had, Tyron Smith retire. And now, I mean, speaking of Tyron Smith, he decided to retire with the Cowboys. You know, all these retirements just makes you think it's more than just football. Even though we as the fans love the game and we love keeping up with the game, we have to also hope that these players, once they leave the white lines, succeed as well and they don't crash. Because way too often we see that with a lot of players, and it's so unfortunate. I mean, you look at the news this weekend that broke that Kyron Lacey, a high value to draft a prospect out of LSU. Trigger warning if you don't want to hear about this. He committed suicide, apparently running from the cops, and it's so sad. I mean, because this guy wasn't even at the end of his career. This is at the peak where he was supposed to go to the draft and catch that bag, make a name for himself in the NFL. And unfortunately, he got in the wrong mix with something. We don't know all the facts. We don't know all the details. I'd prefer to think, hopefully, whatever demons were haunting him, that they will not haunt his family. Because this is going to be something that they will deal with forever. So prayers for Kyron Lacey's family, his friends, those who knew him, those who loved him. They won't have him here on this earth, but from what I hear, he was a great guy for the most part. So rip Kyron Lacey. All right, let's head pitch side and talk about some quick news real quick. And I also want to kind of look onto a list that a friend tipped me on about from a creator that was really cool. Then we'll get to the recap of the games from the weekend. Wayne Rooney, according to Talk Sport today, they in their transfer notebook that they come out with, has been rumored to be tied to Blackburn Rovers. I don't understand why, honestly. Wayne Rooney is, if you know the history of this guy's managerial career, I don't know why as a club you would want to be associated with this guy. No offense to him, he sounds like a overall great guy as a person, but as a manager, the track record is horrendous. He didn't do great at Derby County. Then he goes to DC United and flunks there as their manager after being a player there. And then he flunks at DC United, comes back to the English game, coaches Birmingham City in the championship, gets them practically relegated before he's sacked after taking John Eustace's club that he was in the playoffs and gets them basically relegated. Then Plymouth Argyle decided before this season to hire the guy, give him a second chance. He got them to basically where they are now. They had a horrible start with him. And look where they are now. They're bottom of the table. They're scraping to try to get out of that relegation zone coming into this Easter weekend. And he got sacked. And now, as Blackburn, we talked about the Blackburn situation last week. Blackburn Rovers are in a mess of a situation. This is not going to help them if they get relegated. I mean, fans are already upset with the ownership, with the director of football. Why do you want to get your fans more pissed at you? Are you trying to alienate your supporters? I don't understand what the move. If this is a true rumor, yeah, this is a rumor. If you are thinking about hiring Wayne Rooney, you better be sure you have players that can outperform his coaching mistakes. Ironically enough, this would be also a club that John Eustace had going very well, and now he's going to take them. I mean, Valerian Ishmael's already done a pretty good job of that, 1 win in 8 games as a coach. But and apparently this is because of this poor run of form by Valerian Ishmael, which, yeah, this is just baffling to me. I don't understand why a club that is already under fire for their ownership is just ignoring fans, ignoring what seems like common sense, and going after a manager that has not proven himself at all in the championship, has proven that he's anything but a good manager, and has proven that he's pretty much a free 3 points for most clubs that are competent in the championship, which is baffling. And even for the clubs that are at their level, like almost a free 3 points or at least a point, it's just mad. And if I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan, I'm hoping this is not true, because if it is, I hopefully have not bought my season ticket yet, because, whew, boy, that would feel like a waste of investment to me. And, I mean, back your club. I'm not going to say, don't buy your season ticket because of it. Don't. I mean, that's for you to decide. Your prerogative. You are a supporter, and I do think the supporters stick with you through thick and thin. And this is definitely a thin moment at Blackburn Rovers. This just does not look good for Blackburn Rovers. If they are to do this, relegation almost feels certain at that point. And then maybe Yankees are just like, okay, this is not a good investment for us to cut ties. And that's what has to happen in order for Yankees to finally be out, as the fans want. Another piece of baffling news is not baffling, it's just it comes out of nowhere, really. Luka Modric was reported by Fabrizio Romano yesterday to have bought a share in Swansea City. And that just came out of nowhere. Of all clubs, why Swansea City for Luka Modric? And apparently, according to the BBC, this is his first venture into ownership of any type for any club, for any footballing purposes. His contract does end at the end of this season. So you have to think, because looking through my brief research, I've seen that FIFA very much regulates tightly the ownership aspects for a club when it comes to players, and third party interests. I mean, it's good for Swansea City, for Swans fans. Like, this is awesome. Like, you get a recognizable name into the new ownership group that came in and bought the club last November. Just, it's an exciting opportunity. Modric said it's an exciting opportunity. Swansea has a strong identity, an incredible fan base, and the ambition to compete at the highest level. Playing at the highest level, I believe I can provide my experience to the club. My goal is to support the club's growth in a positive way and help build an exciting future. True, I mean, Swansea has a history of being in the Premier League for a long time. Do they have a lot of silverware to back it up? Not really. But they're a club that, I mean, they have the prestige. They're one of the bigger clubs in Wales. Wrexham is up there, and besides them, I mean, Cardiff City are kind of trending downwards. Newport County's trending up a little bit, but I mean, there's like four huge Welsh clubs if you're not looking at the Welsh Premier League. And I mean, Swansea is probably the more recognizable name of the four besides Wrexham. And this is huge. I mean, who knows what the future is going to hold? Let's just say that Modric retires at the end of the season. He plays out the rest of the season with Real Madrid because apparently he is a very important part of Carlo Ancelotti's plans at the club, according to Fabrizio Romano. Let's just say he retires at the end of the season, fulfills his obligations, retires, goes and joins the ownership at Swansea. I think that'd be brilliant. Like, he could absolutely put a face to the club, put some recognition on a club that has been mired in the championship for so long. And there's clubs here that are starting to get more and more recognition, and I love it for the EFL Championship because it is a league that has been so underrated for so long. And now you have clubs that are coming up. We're going to assume Wrexham is coming up. Wrexham, Birmingham City, Swansea City now. You'll have Southampton. You'll have Leicester City, who has won a Premier League title in its time. You'll have Ipswich, who has kind of started to become a name for itself. You'll have, who knows, you might have Leeds or Sheffield United still there, who also have huge ownership groups, and maybe if Burnley somehow fumbled the bag, Burnley, who has JJ Watt on the ownership staff. Like, this is a lot of clubs that are getting these big time owners that are investing into the club and making them better, and you love it for the championship. You want to see more of this stuff. I do think, though, it is going to push these smaller clubs, the clubs that are owned by local owners, which I think is awesome. You want to invest in your local club, that's great. But I do think it also is going to push them to the wayside. And of course, it's all these days in this sport. It's all about money. But this it feels very very tenuous to the point of where how are the smaller clubs going to compete and keep up? And that's what you have to wonder. Otherwise, I love this move, and I think it's great for Swansea City. I'm sure Swans fans are over the moon happy about the kind of recognition and brand support this will bring to the club. Now, if Modric continues playing beyond this season, that's going to be interesting. How he's going to be involved, if he's going to be involved at all in decisions until he stops playing. He is getting older, though, so who knows. I want to get into really quick, before we get into the recap of the previous weekend, I wanted to look at a list that was sent to me by a friend. I want to credit Ben HD, who is a Preston North End fan, a very consistent championship content creator. I want to credit him for this list because he made this list, and well, he found this list and published it. I love his content, great stuff. It is about the highest average home attendance in the EFL. It's very interesting to look at this list. I mean, at the top, you see some very obvious names. Sunderland at number one, with an average of 38,995 per home game. That's crazy, but it just shows the brand that Sunderland is and how loyal those fans are. Road for Leeds, who has an average of 36,119. They're number 2. And then, of course, you have Bramall Lane with Sheffield United at 28,123 at number 4. Pride Park is surprising to me at number 3. Derby, they average apparently 28,905. You would not expect that for Derby County. Derby County doesn't scream. I mean, I know they've made it to the Premier League, right? Of course, they had one of the more notorious seasons in the Premier League, but they made it. Still, you wouldn't think it'd be that big, but credit to Derby fans. They show out, apparently. Coventry at the CBS Arena, they averaged 27,366. They're at number 5. Kudos to Coventry. I mean, they struggled a bit with their stadium for a long time before, they got it built, and then Mark Robbins came in, and now they've had all this success. But you have to remember, they also were struggling. They had to share a stadium with Birmingham City for a bit. But, kudos to them that they're now this high on this kind of a list for attendance. St. Andrews at Ninehead Park, that's Birmingham City, who are in League One. They're now in the championship. They averaged 26,712. Amazing. I mean, Birmingham have always had one of the more underrated supports, I think, at the championship. They're very much a very diehard fan base. All these fans are. Let's be honest. All these fans are great. Hillsborough is at number 7. Sheffield Wednesday, they're at 26,502. Very good. It's shocking and very admirable, especially considering how Chansiri has really drugged that club down. But yet still fans are coming and showing out, and credit to those fans for enduring with an owner like Chansiri. Carrow Road for Norwich, 26,276. This more showed up last year. Norwich really, you noticed it more when they were making that push for the playoffs. They looked really good last year. That it always felt like a sold out crowd for Norwich City. This year, it's not been so much because Norwich have kind of been mid table most of the year. They haven't been the deadly team they were last year in attack. But anyways, Canaries fans really have showed out, and despite just a very disappointing season where most people consider them to be playoff contenders, they haven't been, and here they are. They're still supporting them, still being great supporters for their club. Riverside Stadium, Millsborough, is next at 25,160. So Borough fans cracked the top 10, and they always have been kind of an underrated, but always very applauded group of supporters. They always travel well. They always have a good home attendance for the most part, even though some would say it feels empty at their home games. Though I would say I think you see that more from their own fans that it feels empty. The Hawthorns cracks the top 10. West Brom at 24,942. The Baggies, established Premier League club for a long time. I'm kind of shocked they're this low, but they're here. They're always a good group of supporters. Tony Mowbray, has come in, and they're still chasing playoffs. They're 3 points off, but it's kind of been a disappointing season compared to last year. It's good to see that kind of support. The Bet365 for Stoke City is next. That is a very surprising one for me. 22,445. Stoke City are there at the bottom of the championship table consistently, and this is a club that was in the Premier League for several years and now have been mired in the championship for so long. It's very disappointing times for Stoke City fans, but somehow they still show up and show out on those cold rainy nights. And kudos to them for that. What more can you say for Potters fans? This is a boost that they will absolutely take to be high up on a list for once. Ashton Gate, Bristol City, they are next right below Stoke City at 21,807. Bristol City fans, they kind of are they're very faithful, very dedicated supporters, and it's good to see that. I didn't expect it to be this high up on a list, but of course this takes into account all the EFL, so you kind of expect more championship fans to be up there, but it is still very interesting to see the kind of lower end of this list, especially since I think they have one of the bigger stadiums in the championship at Ashton Gate. Bolton are next, actually, at 21,427 average attendance at the Reebok. A League One team that is usually fighting for playoffs in League One. I did not expect this one because while they are a consistent team in League One, they aren't bad, but they're not great either. They're just there. I mean, that's pretty cool to see a League One team. I mean, we saw a League One team higher up in Birmingham City who, they're League One, but they also are they've had some years in the Prem, but mostly Championship. They're a very established championship club, and to see them go back up so quickly shows how big of a club they are. Bolton, I don't think they've been to the championship in a while, and still they show out. Their fans show out at 21,427. It's crazy to see that. Hull City are next at the MKM Stadium, an average of 21,100. The Hull City, they're in the relegation zone battle this year, and they've had the awful ownership. They sacked Rosina. They had horrible transfer business lately. It's not great, but still, I think this list, if there's one big takeaway from this list, it is that fans and supporters in English football show up and show out. And I think that is not to be underestimated, undervalued. Despite, it being bad times or awful times at their club, they will still show up and show out and be loud and proud of their side. So good for Hull City fans. I was watching the Coventry game yesterday, and you could tell at times. I mean, at times you could tell they were very disappointed, but at the same time, also you could hear them when Hull was playing well. You could tell it was full, and they're a loud, boisterous group of fans. The one Hull City fan I kind of just associate with them is HIT Sevens, just because there's that series on YouTube about what's going wrong with Hull City, because he's a Hull City fan himself. So yeah, shout out HITC Sevens, great YouTube channel. And Park for Portsmouth is right below Hull at 20,233 average. For Pompey, I mean, they were one of the better home field advantages last year in League One, and I think they still have a pretty good atmosphere even in the championship. They might not always play well, but Portsmouth are definitely one of the more unique and fun teams in the championship just to have around, just because they provide a different energy in terms of just the physicality and how they like to play and all of that. Turf Moor. Now, this is one that I'm shocked at. Turf Moor is next. Burnley are at 19,732 average, and they're the second place team right now in the championship, and they only average 19,000 for home games. That's crazy to me. Like, I know Burnley fans are some of the more dedicated fan bases. This just shocks me. Like, how are you so low on this list? You're below the likes of teams that people would say are smaller clubs, like Middlesbrough, like Sheffield Wednesday, like Birmingham City, like Norwich or Stoke even. Like, I don't know what's going on at the club. I'm assuming, like it is for a lot of clubs, high ticket prices, but still that's insane that they are just this low on this list. Below them is Vicarage Road at Watford for 19,353. I don't, it's surprising. I don't really correlate Watford with high attendance or, I guess they are also kind of a Premier League-ish club that have been in the Premier League recently that just have gone down. I could see it, I guess. I don't associate Watford with a ton of fans. So no disrespect to Hornets fans. They're a pretty cool team when they're good. They look like a fun team, but especially the Georgian midfielder, I forget his name right now, but he's a fun player to watch. I love that guy. I wish he was playing at a higher level because he deserves it. He's a good player. I rate him highly. Cardiff City Stadium is next with 19,078. Of course, that's Cardiff City. They're right on the fringe of relegation. Right now, they are in the relegation zone, and yet, again, their fans still show out. And that they're this high up they're still on the top 20 is pretty cool. They are a club that, again, you don't associate with a ton of fans, but Bluebirds, apparently, they show up and show out and are proud, and good for them. The John Smith Stadium for Huddersfield Town, 18,757 is next, 19th in this list, and Huddersfield just got relegated from the championship last year. They kind of are having a meltdown right now in League One. I don't know if they'll even make the playoffs this year, which is crazy to think about, considering they were one of the teams that I think people would have coming right back up, but nope, it looks like they're having a tough time to even do that, and yet they still are showing up. This is a club. I think it was Carlos Corberan that who took them to the playoffs and the championship, and now they're all the way down to League One. It's crazy just to think about how they could still be in League One and still have such good attendance. It's pretty cool, though I'm shocked that they're below the likes of Bolton. It just doesn't feel like a recently relegated championship side would just be this low below the likes of Bolton and Stoke, or even Derby County, to be honest. I mean, kudos that their fans showed up. Now, this one is probably the more surprising of all the 20. This is in 20th. Is the upstarts of League Two, Bradford City's Valley Parade. 17,193. League Two, by the way. This is a team, of course, that could be very easily promoted to League One. Shout out to them. They've had like a very much of a coming out party. I believe they recently sold out the stadium, Valley Parade, and it looks like a great atmosphere. I watched some of their highlights lately, and it's amazing to just see the atmosphere it is, and it looks really cool. If you have the chance to go to a Bradford City game, I'm sure that would be a dope experience. Like, check it out. And check out the highlights if you can, because it looks really cool. Like one of the better atmospheres in English football lately. For a League Two side to be up here, shout out to them. It's not like a ton, but still, if they keep growing, do competitively well in League One, start getting more of the money, they could do even better. And who knows, they might attract interest of some new owners or something like that. But right now, it looks like Bradford City are very much on a upswing right now in terms of fan support, and how well they're playing also helps. If they go up to League One, it'll be fascinating to see how well they do there next season. Yeah, very cool list. Again, credit Ben HD with that list. Very good stuff. Always appreciate those kinds of lists because they always make you think about, man, where's my club? Where's what kind of things are they doing, and how's it stack up to the rest of the EFL? So shout out again, Ben. You're awesome. And let's move on really quick to the recap of the last weekend of the championship. It was kind of it felt like a very uneventful week. It wasn't. There was a lot of stuff that happened, obviously. Saturday's games, we saw Leeds escape Preston. They got that game, all three of the game's goals got scored in 15 minutes. Preston fell behind him with 4 minutes to go because of Manor Solomon, who finally got on the score sheet for the first time in a while. And then Preston decided to answer actually with a goal. Shocking, I know. It's Preston. But it's King Kessler Hayden, who's a very up and coming talent in the championship that Preston has. He scored in the 6th minute to level the score, and then Jaden Bogle in the 13th minute scored to give Leeds the lead. After that, not much happened. A couple of yellow cards, but other than that, Preston just couldn't find the net. Ironically enough, they had 3 shots, 2 of which went on target. Meanwhile, you look at Leeds, I mean, they barely won the possession battle, but they had 20 shots, 5 of which went on goal. Just absolutely pure insanity. Shows how much better quality Leeds are on both sides of the pitch, attacking and defending. So kudos to Leeds United. They gutted out a win, kept their championship promotion hopes alive. They climbed to the top of the table because Plymouth, they were hosting Sheffield United, and it looked like a slog in the first few minutes, and then Raksaki, he scored in the 44th minute, right before halftime to give the Blades the lead. It looked like they were going to just escape with a gutty 1-0 win, and then all of a sudden, Plymouth decided to just show up out of nowhere. Mustafa Bundu, he got a ball under his control. Great pass it was, too, and he got it into the penalty area. I thought at first glance it was a penalty, and it wasn't. It was given as a corner, and I mean, they'll take it because, Ryan Hardy, who else? We talked about him, how underrated he is as a goal scorer in the championship, but he scored to equalize for this game in the 81st minute. So with 10 to go, well, technically 9 to go, they scored to equalize this game. And then it looked like, oh, well, it's just going to be a draw. Maybe Sheffield United were going to score late, but this looks better right now. It's going to be shared points, and Sheffield United are just going to be like a point or maybe 3 points behind the race. No big deal. Well, disaster struck because after Tyrese Campbell was subbed in, he got a chance to give Sheffield United all 3 points. And I probably would have done it, honestly, if Sheffield United had scored at this point. Campbell, he got the ball. He got it in a great position into the box. He had a runner kind of coming in to the box as well. I think he should have passed it. He didn't square it. He decided to go himself because of course, the form he's in. And he just rifles it into the side netting. And so that shit's gone. Then 1 minute later, Plymouth just have this great, brilliant move that they make where Mohamed Tiani just has the most clean connection with the ball you will ever see after a save, and he just rifles it into the back of the net, gives Plymouth the 2-1 lead at home park, and they hold on for dear life the rest of the way, despite a brilliant effort at times by Sheffield United. It was very desperate, though, and Plymouth get all 3 points, and so the championship struck again. Plymouth now are 2 points, no, 3 points from safety, which is crazy to say. You would not have thought they'd only be 3 points with 4 games to go from safety in the championship. And again, this is Plymouth for you. They are always scraping, crawling, and if they somehow pull another escape from relegation again, it will be hilarious. It's a great win for Plymouth, very damaging for Sheffield United, because now it does look like, I mean, they're 5 points back with four to go. Of course, two of those games are within 2 days of each other. So it feels like desperate times for Sheffield United. Chris Wilder, who are crumbling into the playoff. And who would have thought we'd said that a month ago? Three straight losses, all just heartbreaking, weird losses for them. Millwall got a huge win, gutted out the first half where they had some chances, didn't dominate the possession, but they got better chances, and they capitalized eventually in the second half. Got a goal in the 65th minute from Camille Newell, and they got all 3 points off Middlesbrough, who and tied Middlesbrough on points. But because Borough have the better goal differential, they're behind them in the standings. This is one where Borough had chances, they just didn't capitalize. And again, were pretty wasteful with their shot attempts. And Millwall weren't on one time with one lapse of judgment by Borough and one lapse of concentration, wasted all 3 points. What could have been a huge win for Middlesbrough. A draw would have even helped. But instead, no points. It's all three for Millwall. And now Millwall are right in the playoff discussion with four to play. And they've got all the momentum. Three straight wins, and now they've faced Blackburn. Of course they do. And if they could somehow pull that off, that would be an incredible scene. Cardiff City and Stoke City. This was a weird game. It was at Cardiff, and there was a medical emergency, so I think they had like a 15-minute delay. So this game took a lot longer. Cardiff City had a lot more chances. They had 16 shots to Stoke's 12, but they just couldn't put as many on goal. Again, were wasteful like Middlesbrough was. Stoke, they took advantage of an own goal to give them a lead, and the crucial, huge 3 points out of this game because now they are 5 points ahead of Cardiff City. And I still think that 50 is going to be or 51 maybe is the magic number to stay safe in the championship. It just puts Stoke even closer to that. Cardiff are just in a world of hurt now. They really need to find points somewhere or else they are going to be finished. Somehow, though, they are clinging into games and they just can't finish them off. And that's kind of been the story for Cardiff City this year. Portsmouth Derby was probably one of the more wild games of the week. It was scoreless at the half because Portsmouth missed a penalty by Colby Bishop. It was saved. And then Derby County took the lead in the 70th minute off Jerry Yates. And then only a minute later, Portsmouth get Robert Atkinson to score a goal just a minute after the restart. And then Portsmouth scored an own goal to give Derby County the lead by who else? Robert Atkinson. Robert Atkinson had a hat trick on that game, two of which were goals for his side, one of which were against him because he tied it up in the 91st minute. And that's insane to think about. And one of them is against your own team. I mean, it's still a huge point regardless because, both teams are trying to escape the relegation zone. It's bigger for Portsmouth just because now it gives them a 4 point cushion. Meanwhile, Derby County are only a point ahead of Cardiff City and Luton Town, who we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, this was a crazy game and definitely is getting closer to crunch time for Derby County. If they can't pick up more points, teams like Luton Town and Plymouth and Cardiff are watching with great interest. Blackburn Rovers got a huge, huge win. I kind of mentioned it earlier that Larry Ishmael got his first win. Yuki Ohashi scored in the 52nd minute to give Blackburn the lead, and 6 minutes later, Christy Montgomery, he got a red card, was sent off. That didn't matter. Luton Town really had more of the possession, more of the chances. They just couldn't capitalize, had very wasteful finishing. They had 9 corner kicks, too. A lot of set pieces, which is what Luton are supposed to be good at because they have all these tall bodies like Carlton Morris and Adebayo, and they just couldn't do anything with it. And so with 4 to play, I mean, Luton are still saved because of other results that they're only a point off of safety. It's huge that they drop all 3 points against the side that they really should have beaten with 10 men. So huge point for Blackburn Rovers to get the first win for Valerian Ishmael. It's now a question of if this is an actual positive result or is this just going to be more of the same? They're just going to revert to the Blackburn of old. If not, this is a huge 3 points and really, I think, cements that they are going to be still in this. They're still in the playoff conversation barely. They're 7 points back with 4 to play, with only 12 points up for grabs. That feels unlikely, but you never know with the championship. QPR Bristol City. QPR actually took the lead in this game. Karamoko Debele in the 21st minute gave QPR the lead, but George Earthy equalized for Bristol City in the 30th. And after that, it really kind of was a nothing game. Bristol City really were not at their best this game. And lately they had been pretty good at creating chances, pretty good at seeing games out. But it shows that if they don't get a lead, Bristol City kind of just fold a little bit. And it shows that their weaknesses here in this game. And now they go into the Easter weekend with a huge match against Sunderland on Friday. They play Leeds the week after this one. This will be, it's 2 or 3 matches left where they can easily be taken advantage of if they play like this. They have to hope they have a better performance because against QPR, one of the more out of form teams in the championship lately, they struggled mightily, and that's the championship for you. Of course, you're never going to get the same result twice in this league, but still, very disappointing result for Bristol City. They only had 5 shots, and the one on target was a goal. And I think QPR probably should have won this game. That would have been a fair result, I think, because they had 13 shots and 4 of them went on goal. In the end, it's a point for Bristol City, which helps their playoff aspiration, but still very disappointing for the Robins. I mean, it is on the road as well, but still very disappointing result. And then you had Sheffield Wednesday hosting Oxford. They had a protest, I believe, at Hillsborough this weekend. And it didn't matter. Sam Long scored in the 79th minute. Both teams had a lot of shots. Both had a lot of chances. 7 combined shots on target and combined 28 shots in total. But Oxford were able to capitalize. And they don't often do that on the road. They're much better at the Kassam Stadium usually. But it's a huge 3 points for Oxford United because now they move 6 points clear of the relegation zone with 4 to play. I mean, still very much a possibility, but still huge result for them to just kind of give themselves a little breathing room and very much closer to that safety point. It's devastating for Sheffield Wednesday because with all the negativity around the owner, the last thing they need is negativity on the pitch. And they've had now 2 heartbreaking results, the Hull City result, and now this one against Oxford United. It's just very crushing to be a Wednesday fan now. I can't imagine how devastating that was to see that goal go in for Sam Long. Moving on, Swansea City were at the Stadium of Light. This felt like a weird. I mean, again, Sunderland were their usual selves. They had a lot of chances. They had 12 shots total, 3 of which were on goal. Swansea did have the opening salvo by Lewis O'Brien in the 2nd minute, but that was saved. And after that, Sunderland had 2 straight chances in the 3rd and 4th minute. They had a lot of good chances early on, Sunderland did. But so does Swansea, and Swansea never were really out of this game. It felt very even in the first half. No one really could really break each other down or, find that punch. Sunderland had 3 offsides go against them in this first half. And then, slowly but surely, it felt like Sunderland were trying to wrench the game away. And then, of course, Swansea would get a shot on target or a shot coming in to the box that just was a salvo. So it went scoreless into the second half. And then Swansea's side all decided to get in gear. And they had 3 shots within the first 8 minutes of the second half. I mean, 4 actually. Count the one right before the goal. Harry Darling, he had a header and it hit the bar. It was from a cross. And then Ben Kabanga slotted in for a very close range. Sunderland basically got taken advantage of by chaos in the box. And this feels very similar to the Leeds game. I mean, after that, Sunderland had a couple of chances and were very close at times to hitting the goal. They had a really good chance in the 87th minute by Wilson Isidore, who had a header from a cross, but still, it wasn't enough. Despite all their efforts, including a blocked shot in the last minute of the game by Enzo Lafie. Swansea get all 3 points for this match. I mean, who would have thunk? Swansea just out of nowhere getting their 3 points. Swansea have just kind of been a little bit of a disruptor in the championship. And they did it again. It feels like they are very much now cemented into the championship for next season, even though they don't have, they're 9 points behind the playoffs. They're pretty much out of the relegation fight at this point. Kudos to them for that. It's a huge result for Swansea. Kind of feels like a bad luck result for Sunderland a little bit, but still, you can't lose like that at home, especially to a team like Swansea, who are very inconsistent. But, I mean, Swansea on their day, they can beat you. They have the talent to do it. It's just what Swansea team shows up. West Brom got right back on track with a 2-1 win over Watford. They had Carlin Grant and Mikey Johnston score to give them a 2-0 lead. I mean, Musa Sissoko got one back for Watford, but it really never felt like Watford were really going to ever really come back in a sense, though they did late on surge into a kind of a comeback mode. like they did against Bristol City, but they just couldn't find that equalizer. Watford dominated possession. They had more of the shot. They just couldn't find the net for the equalizer. The Baggies get all 3 points, put themselves in 7th place, and are right back in the thick of the playoff race. They're now 3 points back, and they have every chance of making it with a massive game against Coventry City coming up on Friday. I mean, this is huge considering they hadn't scored more than one goal, I think, in a while. Their issue was finding the back of the net. I do think I called that they were going to score more than one goal and get this win. It just felt like Watford had been fading a bit, and I think this kind of sealed Watford's playoff chances official, and West Brom get right back into the thick of it. It'll be a very interesting playoff race come the end of the season. The thing that affected the playoff race most, because this could have really hurt teams like Middlesbrough and Millwall and West Brom, is if Coventry City had pulled out 3 points yesterday against Hull City. And it looked like they were going to because they got an own goal from Charlie Hughes. It was originally credited to Charlie Hughes as an own goal, but then given later on during the game. So Mac Grimes officially was given the goal for Coventry in the minute after the second half started. But then Abu Kamara, who's substituted on late in the game, got a great cross from Jordan Amrabat, another substitute. Kamara got a deflection and it went in. He scored the equalizer, and Coventry just couldn't find that clutch goal that they have been seemingly having this season. So instead of being able to go, it would have been 5 points clear of everyone in the playoff race, they're only 3 points. And it feels like a huge, huge missed opportunity for Coventry City. Now, it's huge is what happens over the weekend. If Coventry somehow drop points against West Brom or even lose to West Brom before heading to Plymouth on Easter Monday, that would be huge dropped points here at Hull City. Because this is a Hull City team that looked like, for long stretches of the game, had nothing creative going on besides Joe Gelhardt. And this was massive for Hull City because it keeps them out of the relegation zone, keeps them, a little breathing distance away with a huge point because now they're 3 points clear of relegation with 4 to play. Even though it's still not a huge gap, it's still a gap, and you want to keep widening that gap the more the season goes on. Hull are trying to just desperately stave that off as long as possible, if at all. So, huge point at the MKM for both teams that could affect their future. If it somehow is going to come down probably to Middlesbrough v Coventry City at the end of the season at the CBS for that final playoff spot, isn't it? It's going to be that final playoff spot up for grab in that game. It's going to be such a tense game, but it'll be worth it for either side if they win all 3 points or if somehow a point secures it for either side. So, fun championship weekend, a lot of ups and downs as usual, and we love to see it. And that's all for this episode for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. We really appreciate the support. Please give us a follow and a like on all our social media platforms. We would greatly appreciate it. We are on YouTube. We are also on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. We're on Amazon. We are also on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So please give us a follow there. We're upping the shorts content a lot lately. So any support on those is also greatly appreciated. Of course, we're getting to exciting time in both the NFL and the championship. Keep listening, keep watching. We appreciate all of you, and we hope to see you in the next episode.